Here's a quick example on how we alleviate anxiety from an actual case study from someone that we actually worked with. Now, of course, it's for identity protection. We're not going to say the person's name. We're just going to give it an imaginary name, but this is an actual case that we worked on recently. So behind me is a chart, and the chart simply goes like this. This represents time, and this represents level of emotion. The blue at the corner here with the plus is positive emotion. The negative here with the red line here is the negative emotion. And I'm writing this as a pre-designed example, so I don't lose time on trying to draw this out during this video. So it looks like this. When we first met our client, and let's call her Lucy. Okay. By the time that I had a chance to chat with Lucy, she was at this age of 45 years old. And basically what she explained during her interview was that for 41 years, she's been going through a massive amount of anger and depression when it comes to her parents. And when I asked her what her earliest thoughts or memories were, she said that she remembers as early as being 4 years old of some of the first times she ever felt anger and depression about her parents. Again, for the sake of identity protection, we're not going to say exactly what the problem is, but we're just explaining that what she was feeling during the interview process is that anytime she thought about her parents and on certain situations that she went through at a young age, we always ask the same question. From 0 to 10, 10 being the lowest, being the most painful, what level of discomfort do you feel when you think about situation X? In this case, it's her parents. But what she said is on some of the memories, she felt as low and as negative as a -8. So -8 would be something like, the moment you think of that person or that situation, you can't focus. You're angry, you're sad, you're upset. It can ruin your afternoon. It can ruin your whole day. Compare that to a level 10 where you actually just want to jump off a bridge and you want to hurt somebody. Or like a level 1 where you think about the problem, you think about the situation. It might sting you a little bit, but it doesn't aggravate you or hurt you so much from just recalling that memory. What she basically explained is that from 4 years old all the way to age 45 years old, let's say 45 is over here, anytime she thought about her parents in those certain situations, some of them would be here. They'd be at a level 2. Other memories would be a level 3. And this went on when we talked to her. At times she would feel a -8 and then a -4. The purpose of me pointing this out is that she discovered through our exercise that for 40-something years, about 41 years, she's been having this feeling about her parents that she couldn't shake off. Now, here's the interesting part. Like you, like most of us, like myself, like Helen, when we first got introduced to this work, this isn't something that you just know. It's something that you discover through the exercise, the mental training exercise that we share with you during the actual event, during the time that we spend together. So she didn't even know that for 40-something years, she had this negative emotion about her parents. She just knew that at times when she saw her parents, she would feel aggravated. They would look at her in a certain way and she'd just get mad. And sometimes she wouldn't even know why she was just getting angry. She just knew she'd get mad. Now, this is important because the reason why she came to us is because she said, look, Alan, here I am at 45 years old. She said at this point, she has a daughter. And this daughter that she has very little to no communication, no relationship with the grandparents, with Lucy's parents. And I asked why. And she said, the pain that she has when thinking about her parents is so strong that it's hard for her to share her daughter with her parents because she doesn't want her daughter to experience something similar. Now, did the grandparents do anything to Lucy's daughter? No, they're not horrible people. They're not harsh people. No, it's just the fact that Lucy had this pain inside of her, and it caused her to create separation with her parents, the grandparents, the grandkids, and even with Lucy herself. And so what we did is we realized that step number one, we helped her understand that as long as these negative emotions still exist, it'll always cause any future events that have a similar pain. It'll cause the experience in the future to go down, get worse. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, based on Lucy's experience, she was realizing that because she was having such negative impact, such pain about her parents and about some other things, she noticed that her health was declining. And she doesn't just attribute it to bad memories and thoughts, but she knew that it had a part to do with it because sometimes these thoughts would get so heavy for her that it's hard for her to breathe. It's hard for her to get work done. It's hard for her to, make ends meet sometimes because she's so focused on the negative of something that happened 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago that it's affecting her present day. Now, that's something that we can all say is factual. I'm sure you've got thoughts, and I did too. I'm sure I still do at times, where something in our past, when we recall it, can bring back such heavy negative memories and feelings that if we're not careful, we can sometimes nosedive into that past trauma. And before you know it, minutes or hours could go by, and it was like, oh my God, where did the time go by? I got so focused on that negative memory. Well, that was happening consistently to Lucy, and that's why she came to us. So what do we do from here? In realizing that the majority of her negative emotions came or resides from her parents, what we did is this. We helped her realize that when it comes to the work that we do, the number one goal that we have is for anyone who comes to us to keep the memory of their past, but to create separation between their past and their present. Emotional separation. So in other words, the goal for Lucy was for her at the end of the session to get to a point where she could recall, vividly reimagine being in that room, being in that moment with her mom, with her dad, reliving whatever experiences she went through where it hurt, where it made her angry, where it made her incredibly sad. But instead of reliving those feelings, Lucy could just go back in her mind, relive that moment, and either feel very neutral, like watching a black and white movie. So it's far, it's distant, it's there, but there's no pain involved. Or if there is some discomfort, it's very, very minimal, which a lot of people ask us to do for them because they use it as a way to remind them of what they went through so they don't repeat that mistake again. So it serves more as a reminder than a jailer or something that holds them back, right? Now, the way we attain this is we do three main things. We help the client, in this case, Lucy, understand that this attachment always comes from one, two, or all three of what I'm about to mention. It either comes from identity. Let me write this down first and I'll explain after. It either comes from a deep, heavy, negative emotion, or it comes from a belief, a very strong negative belief. So a belief, an emotion, or an identity. Let me explain. Sometimes when people go through major trauma and they can't let it go, sometimes they look at themselves and they say, my identity is, like one of our clients said before, like, I feel like a victim. Well, I feel, that's an identity. So it's different from saying that I had a victim moment or I had a victim mentality. That's a separation from self. If somebody believes that their identity is victim, then how they act and how they operate will always be as a victim. They'll always look at the world like, oh my God, everything's wrong, everything's working against me, everybody hates me, nobody likes me, so on and so forth. That's what I'm referring to as identity. And that's where we help people make a shift. Sometimes it's not identity. Sometimes they know that they're not a victim, but every time they think about that person or persons, they just feel so angry or so sad or so guilty or so depressed, or they get this massive amount of anxiety. They don't know how to shake it. Well, if we figure out that it's an emotional challenge, then we use a technique to sever that negative emotion from past to present. Or sometimes it's a belief. And a belief could be something like, for example, in the beginning of this exercise, Lucy had said, my parent, like she said, I believe my parents did this to me. I believe my parents deprived me. I believe my parents, they weren't there for me the way they should have been. I felt like they left me. I felt like they abandoned me. A lot of people use that word, feeling abandonment. So her belief was that her parents did X, this thing or things that were negative to her. And because she believed it, her emotional triggers reacted in a way that is in accordance to believing somebody tried to do something negative to you. Now, this is beautiful in the sense that if you're going through some sort of negative trauma in your life where you just have this thought and it's reoccurring and it's causing you to feel depression or constant anger, or it's holding you back from chasing your goal or your dream or going after the girl or getting the job or whatever the case is, I would bet you 9 times out of 10 that if you're going through something like that, it's either going to fall on one of these categories. You probably either have a strong identity about who you are, like a lot of people say, well, I'm a victim. There's nothing I could do. You know, they just felt like they were just completely out of control. There's no control for them. Or they just feel really negatively heavy about that situation and they can't shake it. Or they just have a belief that somebody intended to do something wrong to them. I think this is wonderful because in the sense that if you know where to look, then you know what to unravel. In Lucy's case, we actually figured out that her identity wasn't a victim. She actually believed that it just happened to her, and she was angry about it because she thought she deserved better. Her emotions were extremely heavy about her parents. And what she consistently said, like, I just feel angry, I feel sad, like I can't, when I think about them doing this, this, and this, I can't shake it, Alan. Then we knew that this was the number one challenge that she was dealing with. The second was the belief, number 2. And the reason why we knew that was the belief is because when I asked her, okay, so what do you think their intentions were? Her automatic response was, well, I believe they weren't there for me. Like, I thought they should have been there for me more than what they did. It's almost like they didn't care about us. Like, those are belief systems, right? To not care about you means that she believes someone super important to her in her life during that young age had less love or care, or however you want to call it, for her, and she felt like she deserved and she should have had more because she was so young. Now, was that actually the case? No. And here's where it gets really exciting. We made number 2, number 3, we made emotions the priority. So this became number 1. Beliefs became number 2. In terms of, like, what do we do to help her? How do we work on this? And all we did is when it came to negative emotions, all we did is we used a technique that we call or refer to as emotional, I'll just write E, restoration. Some of our clients call this an emotional detox. Now, what is an emotional restoration technique? It's the ability to use certain language patterns that allow a person to restore their emotions to how it felt when they were a child before these negative events impacted them in a way that just set them spiraling down and feeling worse and worse and worse throughout the course of their life. There is a point in time when all of us, I mean, you, me, everybody, where the outside world didn't hurt us so much, where events and situations didn't make us crumble. And our goal, our job is to use this particular skill set to help someone identify where in this pattern, in this line of time, where was that time when there was no pain? Now, you watching this video might be thinking, holy crap, like, how am I supposed to do that? Like, Alan, I'm 40, 50, 60 years old. You asked me to remember something when I was 4? Or what, are you nuts? No, that's not your job. That's our job. I'm letting you know that we have specific techniques that allow the subconscious mind to re-enter, to relive those moments that maybe we forgot about because we got older, and life just got stuff in our way. But it's in there. The subconscious program, it it takes a photograph of just about everything that we go through in life. It's kind of like a giant hard drive. The question is, do you have the ability to extract that data again? And if you do, great. If you do, great. But if you don't, that's where we come in. So number one, emotional restoration technique, we were able to get her back to a point in her life where she was able to relive positive feelings about her parents. Well, not just positive, not just hug a tree and feel wonderful. I mean, specifically about her parents. And we were able to help her reframe the way she saw her parents. And it was really wonderful because once she got to this place and she realized that there was something positive here about her parents, when we got to there and then we brought her back to the present moment in terms of thinking, there was a moment where I asked her, I said, hey, Lucy, tell me about your parents now. How do you see your parents now? And you know what she said? She said, oh my God, Alan, I can't believe this. I see my parents as just really hardworking people. Like most Asians that came to Canada or North America, they were first generation Asians who came here with very little to nothing. So they had to work hard. They had to work 2 or 3 jobs. They had to spend very little time with their kids. Kids in the 80s, in the 70s and 80s, oftentimes they were given a key and told to stay home by themselves. By the time they were 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, that was a norm back then. And in her mind, before the work, she thought, oh my God, my parents abandoned me. But after restoring her emotions here and then having her carry that back to the present, it allowed her to look at her life like on the other side of the coin and allowed her to see life during that time, not just through her eyes, but through her parents' eyes, to see what they were going through. And it was beautiful because she said, Alan, I never realized this, but you know, it's crazy. My parents worked so hard to make sure that there was food on the table for me and my siblings. So of course they couldn't be with us. And even further, she then realized, oh my God, a version of what my parents did to me without meaning to. They didn't mean it. They had to work hard. She's also doing that to her kids too. Again, without meaning it. Like she runs a business part-time. She runs a full-time job. She has a family to take care of. You know, she's a busy mother, a respectably busy mom, just trying to keep the roof on overhead the family and food on the table. So she's like, oh, geez, I didn't realize that. But my parents were just doing everything that they could to survive. She never had that realization beforehand. Why? Because, and make a note of this, okay? Anytime you carry negative emotions that are heavy from the past, it'll always alter the way you look at your present. Anytime you carry negative emotions about a person, place, thing, situation from your past, as if it's not healed, if it's not resolved, it'll always make us look at the present situation, a similar event, or similar emotions to an event in the same way that we felt negative from the past. Which is why it's so important to sever that negative feeling from past to present. Here's where it got really interesting. After we were able to create emotional restoration for her, we then moved on to beliefs. By default, without even trying, because she was able to see a different perspective about her parents, she then believed and realized, oh my God, my parents weren't trying to abandon me. That's crazy. She believed then and realized my parents were just trying to work hard. Like, you know, what else were they supposed to do? When you're a first generation Asian, it's not like you can just pull out extra money for babysitting and just have somebody come over and take care of your kids. They didn't know anybody here, but they were running 2 or 3 jobs, both mom and dad were working 2 to 3 jobs at the same time, separately. So of course no one's going to be around. And once she realized that, the belief changed automatically by itself. Now, look, I've said a lot. I've been speaking now for maybe about 20 minutes. You might be thinking, holy crap, Alan, like how long did that take? Here's where I think it's magnificent. Because she was carrying this pain for 40-something years of her life, the actual time that we spent in the emotional restoration technique was literally just under 1 hour. The part before that we talk about, which I refer to as the discovery session, discovery as in, we got to find out, like, what's the problem? How is that a problem for you? How is that negatively impacting your life today? That as well took about an hour and 10 minutes. So when you look at the total time that it took us to create that switch for her, that automatic switch. And when I say automatic, I mean an automatic switch where anytime she thinks about her parents or those negative situations, she's not trying to think positive. She's not trying to feel good about them. It's like a light switch. You just turn it on, it's just on. No effort required. That's when we know we made the proper switch, the full 180. That in total took literally just a little over 2 hours. And this is why I love this work and why I think it's so remarkable. Because a person can carry pain about their past life, about their present life, and have it, connected to something at their childhood for decades. If you know somebody who understands this work and can help you unravel it, decades worth of pain, decades long of pain, of discomfort, of anxiety, depression, anger, whatever you call it, can literally be resolved within a couple of hours. In fact, most of the people who I work with today, they average about 2 hours, sometimes up to 3 hours, to make dramatic change of pain, of discomfort that they've been carrying with them for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So in closing, a couple of notes to keep in mind. If you're going through that kind of struggle right now, I want you to know there is a way out of it. Number one, you need a practitioner who understands neuro-linguistic programming and clinical hypnosis and performs it in a way that helps you understand that you are fully in control during that whole period of time. That the whole point of the practitioner being there is just to help you unravel all the clutter that's in your mind. Because we all have clutter, right? We have so much stuff to do. It's not easy to just be like, okay, let's hone in on this one thing in our life and just clear that up. Like it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. You need someone who's been trained well to understand these processes and help guide you through it. And knowing that you're in control throughout the whole time, throughout the whole conversation, really, it's really all it is. It allows you a better chance of not only experiencing this change rapidly, because the practitioner, their job is to get to the heart of the problem quickly and help you reformat that or reshape that belief, those negative feelings, that identity fast. But you get a firsthand experience of knowing that you have something inside of yourself that most people probably never told you you have. You have an internal mental and emotional power that allows you to take full control over the way you think and feel. And don't just take my word for it. Like after you go through that experience yourself, you'll realize that not only this is possible for you too, but after doing this a few times, you get a hang of or an idea of how you can start doing this for yourself. And that's where life gets really interesting. Because all of these things that would hold us back normally from our past, that would then negatively shape our present, those get cut. You no longer have control over us. And instead, we start having more control over our present, over the way we feel, the way we look at life, the results that we produce, everything. And it doesn't mean that things are perfect, okay? I don't mean it like that. I just mean when something goes wrong, when something goes in a way we don't like, we don't fall victim, feeling like we can't do something about it. There's always a way to make it better. It's just, you can't do that when there's so much negativity from your past that's still hanging on to you, that's still pulling you down. We got to sever that tie. We got to cut that apart so you can get a chance to really experience life on what it's like to feel lighter, to feel the relief, to feel like life is in control for you the way you want to make it versus molding it based on something that you've had, an experience that you had, maybe negatively, from the past. Any questions you got on that, please let me know. But this is how we make a transformation and in closing, this is how we create an emotional transformation for a person who's been carrying negative emotions throughout the majority of their life. Okay. Shit, 27 minutes.